You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com. And now, it's time for the show that breaks down the options market from unusual activity alerts to market analysis, strategy overviews, listener questions, and much more. If it involves puts and calls, then our all-star panel will break it down. It's time to hit the Option Block with your host, Mark Longo from the Options Insider Media Group, and co-hosts, Uncle Mike TOSAW from St. Charles Wealth Management, along with Mark the Greasy Meatball Sebastian and Andrew the Rock Lobster Giovinazzi from OptionPit.com. And now, get ready to hit the Option Block.
All right, everybody. Welcome back. That music means it is time to commence our broadcast week. Once again, hope you had a good weekend. Now it's time for your bi-weekly options extravaganza, known around the globe as the Option Block. My name, of course, Mark Longo from theoptionsinsider.com, as well as from a little thing we call around these parts, the Options Insider Radio Network. I'd like to kick off the week in fun style. We'll get to all of our fun wrestling, kick things off, get the blood pumping in a little bit, of course. If you like what you hear, this, anything else on the network, make sure A, you're subscribed to the full network. B, throw a star or a like or a comment, whatever your platform lets you do out there. Again, there's a lot of platforms carrying it, so whatever they let you do does help new people discover the content. And of course, if you want to discover more great content in your lives, you want 200 plus exclusive episodes coming down the pike at you, you want early access to stuff, you want, of course, to listen to shows live, you want to get your name in the hat for the Pro Trading Crate, all the other fun that we got going on. theoptionsinsider.com/pro, the place to go. Welcome to all of our new members. I always admit I'm a terrible welcomer of new members. I always get busy with other things. So welcome to all the new folks who've been joining us there of late. Love to see the new names, the new faces in the chats and in the Pro Q&As and everything else we have cooking over there. But now it is time to get cooking on the old network. To kick things off in high style, it is time for a little bit of the old 80s wrestling trivia challenge. Here we go. All right, listeners, I will admit I was busy before showtime, and all of a sudden I realized, what am I forgetting? Oh, yes, the 80s wrestling challenge. So a bit of a curveball out of here at the last minute here, but an interesting one. Today's 80s wrestler, definitely a heel of the 80s. I'd say a solid mid-carder. This person, I don't want to get too much into their gimmick because it makes it pretty obvious once I say their gimmick. A couple of weird facts about this person. Kind of wrestled pretty much under his real name, which was rare back then. Obviously, Hulk Hogan, his real name wasn't Hulk Hogan. Ultimate Warrior wasn't his real name. He did change his name to Warrior later on. Shows you how crazy of a guy he was. But when he wrestled, he was not the Ultimate Warrior. So this guy actually wrestling under his real name, which was kind of, again, a bit of an obscurity back then. Also, apparently, his gimmick, let's just say the ladies liked his gimmick. And he was apparently in real life was the complete opposite of who this person was. Yeah, I knew once I said that. The buzz is already coming in. Apparently, he was the complete opposite of this gimmick in real life. Even, I never noticed. I'll have to go back and look at some of his matches to see. Apparently, he actually wore his wedding ring into the ring for all of his matches. So he's out there smooching the ladies and doing all his other stuff and dancing and wearing his wedding ring. So that is kind of funny. I'll have to go look and see if that is indeed the truth. So an interesting guy, apparently so obsessed with the honor of the business that he actually left WWE after the whole infamous Montreal screw job. If you don't know what that is, listeners, look it up. It's an infamous event in wrestling history. All right, I knew once I said the sexy time. You guys are going to know where I was throwing down. Uncle Mike, I saw you buzzing first, sir. So who am I talking about that the ladies loved back in the 80s?
He's simply ravishing Rick Rude.
Ravishing Rick Rude, yes. I assumed that might have been a fake name because of all the alliteration. But no, his name was actually Richard Irwin Rude. So there you go. Not many guys get to rock their real name in the ring, but Ravishing Rick Rude was one of them. Had great feuds with Jake the Snake. I was thinking Jake the Snake, actually, because I saw something about him this weekend and made me think of Jake the Snake. But I think we just did him recently. So I thought, who could I do that would be a good juxtaposition to Jake the Snake, and hence one of his big rivals. Ravishing Rick. It's kind of weird because Jake the Snake was supposed to be a heel, and Rick Rude was a heel, but people liked Jake the Snake so much, he pretty much became a quasi-face. So he had a run. Even though I do like a good heel versus heel match. That's a conversation for another day. I saw someone tweeted out recently an image of what they said was me as a child, and a gif, and it was a little kid just throwing himself off the ropes onto a wrestling buddy. And you know what? It brought a smile to my face, whoever tweeted that. It was pretty funny. Even though my moves were much better than that kid's. But I digress. It was pretty funny. As we keep on rolling, right on into the trading block.
It's time to break down the latest topics, trades, and trends in the world of options. It's time for the trading block.
All right, everybody, welcome to the trading block, the portion of the show where we break down what the heck is trading out there today. And again, another one of those days where you don't like what you're seeing on the screen, just kind of wait 5 minutes, because we were heading back into red territory earlier in the session. In fact, not long before showtime, we had VIX at an 18 handle and above. We have since commenced the beginning of the whipsaw, apparently, because S&P now up about 0.25%. The Dow still down about 1/3%, so the Dow still in the red territory. NASDAQ up about 1%. So that means vol coming back in a little bit, retreating off the 18 handle. We got up to a high of an 18.11 this morning. That was right before showtime. And now we're at about a 17.60. Still up from the Thursday show, up about 0.75 point. But given some of the froth back, will we give it all back up? Will we drop back down to a 16 handle or below by the end of the day? Or will this just be the calm before the proverbial storm out there? We shall see. VVIX giving up some of the ghosts as well, but still frothy, still effervescent at about a 98. That's down 6 points from where it was on the Thursday show. But again, respectable. Got to pay attention when it's threatening that triple-digit level. VXX, 2570, up about 0.75 point when we kicked off the show. UVXY, 1920, up about 0.8 point. SVIX, 26, down a full point. UVIX, 4.5, up about 0.2 point. And VolQ was at about a 20.5, up about 0.75 point. Looks like if I re-rack VolQ now, it's giving up some of that ghost as well, down to about a 20.15. So up about 1/3 point right now from where we were on the Thursday show in VolQ. So a lot to unpack. Mr. Uncle Mike, as our winner, we will start with you. What are your enduring memories of the Ravishing one? And then B, what's catching your eye out there in the markets today?
So one of my favorites, if you ever do a YouTube search of when Bobby the Brain Heenan, who was his manager, of course, along with Rick Rude, were guests on Regis and Kathy Lee, it's quite entertaining to watch, and it just shows Rick Rude chasing Kathy Lee around the set, and it's very entertaining. So that's definitely one of them that I would definitely recommend watching if you want to see some good old-fashioned 80s entertainment on Regis and Kathy Lee when they meet pro wrestler Rick Rude and Bobby the Brain Heenan.
Apparently a better actor today, than we gave him credit for, because apparently he was not like that in real life at all. So he was actually a decent actor.
Oh, he was something else. He was simply ravishing.
For your consideration, Ravishing Rick Rude. I'll just put it out there.
There you go. There you go. And so in this market today, it's kind of like when you're looking at it, and just with all the movement that we've had the last few weeks, although be it to the downside, the last couple of days we haven't had a lot of movement. You're just looking at it, you're like, would you just do something already? And we continue to be on this show, 2 shows in a row, to where when we're on the show, we're really not having that much of a move right now so far at the noon hour in Chicago. So kind of would like to see the market do something so we can have a little bit more to talk about. But in terms of what it is doing right now, market is just up slightly on the day today. We have technology up a couple bucks on the day, just looking at XLK. We have consumer discretionaries up a little bit. But other than that, we are mostly flat on the day on the marketplace. We do have Microsoft coming back a little bit. It's up over 1% on the day. Microsoft has really been getting its butt kicked the last couple of weeks, but right now it's back above the 320 level, which is good if you're long Microsoft. So that is a good thing for all the Mr. Softy people out there. Tesla is actually making a little bit of a move today, up $12 on the day. And so, but other than that, that's really about what's lighting up my tape at this point in the day. Bonds continue to just climb the reverse wall of worry, if you will, and continue to sell. It's not a major sell-off, but it's just like these little cuts every day in terms of the bonds going down. And so interest rates are higher, and so at some stage, people are going to be interested in holding these bonds that actually pay a decent interest rate because of the greater than, I believe we're in over 1,200 shows right now. I would say a vast majority of those shows, we have talked consistently about how interest rates don't exist anymore, but they exist again. And so I think one of the things that I'll be looking for, that I am looking for, that I know that I am looking for, is when are bonds going to bottom? Are we going to continue to raise interest rates, or what's the fear of raising more interest rates? Because bonds themselves actually sold off in 2022 before we had a lot of interest rate increases. They sold off in anticipation of the interest rate increases, and they were right, of course. But it kind of makes me wonder, why are we still down at these levels? Are we anticipating more interest rate increases, or are we just scared? The market will tell us in its own time. That's what I'm seeing today. Simply ravishing.
Ravishing indeed. Mr. Meatball, now, same two questions for you. First, your enduring memories of the ravishing one, sir. And then B, what's catching your eye out there? And another day where we're kind of vacillating around and not really doing a heck of a lot yet, sir.
Well, I always loved, if you didn't have cable, the only wrestling that you got to watch was the Saturday morning show. And it was always just like a star versus a jobber. And Rick Rude, it seems like, was on every single Saturday. And his entrance, the whole dog and pony show with pulling the woman out of the audience and doing that whole thing always seemed to last way longer than the actual match. And so I enjoy them. He had a pretty good feud with Warrior, pretty good feud with Jake the Snake. Who else did he have a pretty decent feud with? Those are the two that really.
Those are the two that I remember.
Into my head.
Yeah.
But yeah, he was quite the showman. I was always a fan, and technically proficient. His finishing move was pretty interesting, and yeah, just all in all, a great wrestler in his time.
Refresh my memory. What was the Ravishing Rick Rude finisher?
Did he do the rack?
I'm blanking on it. So yeah, maybe
I believe he did the rack. And so it was a submission hold. But yes, very, very an excellent wrestler. Speaking of excellent traders, let's talk markets. NVIDIA is pulling the whole market higher right now. NVIDIA is up 6% ahead of its earnings. I'm wondering whether that pattern of the pre-earnings ramp, post-earnings tanking is getting set up again. I'm sure you talked about this with Andrew on Thursday, but they are pricing in a giant move on earnings this Wednesday, over 10%. That is typically the median move. The median priced-in move is about 6.5. So they're looking for some serious fireworks here. Most of the market is actually red. XLK is up, and the biotechs are up, but everything else pretty much kind of reddish. Microsoft a little reprieve. Tesla is also having a really good day, as Mike said. Apple's been up and down, but outside of tech, everything looks kind of ugly. Gold, the financials are down a lot, and J&J was down a lot more, but still down about $4 right now. A nice little gap down, rallied back to its gap price. But if you're wondering why the Dow is down so much, it's J&J and then Goldman.
And while you were talking, I did look up Rick Rude's finisher, because I remember him doing something I thought like over the back of the neck or something, and it was called the Rude Awakening. And it's just a neck breaker, essentially. Now they're saying now it would never pass muster in the modern wrestling because everyone does it. Kind of like the DDT, everyone does it. You can't. It's not a finisher anymore. It's just a move everyone does. It became so popular. I'm guessing Rick Rude's move was something similar. The neck breaker. Now everybody does something along those lines out there these days. So there you go, listeners. A little bit of an overview of your favorite, the Ravishing one. A little bit of an overview of these markets, because as the Uncle and Mike's alluded to, not a heck of a lot lighting it up out there today. Usually VIX likes itself a little bit of some whipsaw-y action out there, but even VIX can't really be bothered to get out of bed today. VIX right now, 211,000 contracts on the tape in VIX land. It's been a while since we've seen it that anemic. The ADV also trending in the wrong direction, back to 763. Now then again, it is August 21st, the day before a very infamous day in Options Insider Radio Network history, which is why there will be no shows tomorrow. Hint, hint. So we expect these numbers in August. We've kind of been all spoiled a little bit by just the ridiculous action we've seen, these whipsaws, vol staying frothy in August, volume staying hot throughout the dog days of August. Now these are the August numbers we know and love. So this is kind of more along the lines. Now that said, once you get beyond VIX, it seems like the rest of the market sitting up and paying a little bit more attention. SPY, like we said, it could be a gentle drifting day around unched. You're not going to stop SPY from putting up over 4 million contracts by this point of the show. And actually right now it's looking pretty robust. 4.71 million contracts on the tape in SPY land. Usually we're around 4.3, 4.4 right now. So it's actually heavier than normal, which is surprising. The ADB, 8.25 million right now. So that continues to tick up. The S, 1.5 million. So again, very respectable. The ADB, 2.88 million. So stuff's going up out there in those products. Let's just pull up our friend the S right now and see how much of it is the 0-day Palooza. Look at the top 20 listeners. And yeah, we are once again 20 for 20. This is the old SPX we know and love. 20 for 20 expiring today. We go out to the top 40 and I see 1, 2, 3. I see 3 contracts that are not expiring today. The first contract that is not expiring today are the 4070 puts. And those are expiring on the 25th. So that's actually an eternity in SPX line. You even got some September 4,700 calls baking in there. You got a 7,000 lot, you got 5,000 lots. But that's really about it. You got to really dig down into the SPX trenches today to find stuff that isn't popping off today. Small caps looking decent, 414,000 contracts on the tape, the ADV 835. So far it seems like the VIX is kind of the laggard, which is interesting. The Q's 2.21 million, the ADV 3.69 million. So everything else seems on pace to hit or exceed their ADV right now. VIX is kind of just wandering like a lost child through the woods, doesn't know what it wants to be out there today. Meta, now we're back to August numbers on the top 10 most actives as well. 196,000. You can even argue that's a little heavy. Usually this time of year, we expect to see $150, $160 to break into the top 10. So 196, threatening 200K. Again, heading into the dog days of summer. It's respectable. That gets us to the artist formerly known as Facebook. This is, of course, a Meta. 288 2/3 today, popping about 5, almost 5.5 points, nearly 2%. Today, so a nice little run for them today. They've actually had a pretty decent range too. They got up as high as 289 and about a quarter, and the low was 281.85. So a lot of living intraday, even though right now they're still looking pretty frothy to the upside. And again, good for 196,000 contracts. Then we jump up to 250,000 for number 9. So again, that's respectable. That gets us to nickel. Oh my goodness, they have come for this one of late. We were just talking about a pretty sizable losing roll that we saw out there in Nikola on Options Oddities on Friday. You know, this was one of the names. I think they were the AUG 5s. So, spoiler alert, those did not work out. That was one of our trifecta of options oddities paper that we gave out to you guys to vote on our question of the week. I think it was the Rivian AUG 40s, the NKLA AUG 5s, and then it was the Keurig Dr. Pepper AUG 33s, I believe, and those were far and away the winners. Because A, they actually made money. B, we actually liked them at the time. The AUG 5s and the AUG 40s, for both of those names respectively, they never even came close. NKLA right now, $1.50 off another 45 cents, 22.5% today. It seems like they have just given up the ghost after just driving it up. I remember the low is about exactly $1 south, 52 cents. So if we get back to that level, listeners, 52 cents in NKLA, what are you doing? Are you buying some stock as just a long-term, non-expiring option? Are you just going to say that thing's done? Are you done with it? Are you going to buy some expensive options premium that costs more than the stock is worth? Maybe when we get down to those levels again. Maybe it might be a good flash pull for now. We'll see. NKLA. Wow. Yeah, but NKLA right now, good for 254,000 contracts, over 250,000 contracts on the table. Let's just see what the hot trades are. Let's go out to the AUG 2s. That's what's getting them. AUG expiring this week. The 2s going up 43,000 times. Most of that opening out there today. Looks like paper buying most of these. Wow. Loading up on the AUG 2s with the stock trading $1.50 and plunging 50%. Or it should be 22%. 50 cents. I don't know if that would be my first choice. Yeah, they bought them for 3 cents, but still. 3 cents 10,000 times. You could put that money to work elsewhere, listeners. There's another 10,000 lot for 3 cents. Wow. Wow, indeed, listeners. Not my first choice, but NKLA. So all that alone is what's accounting for a good chunk of the paper out there today. Number 8, let's get to the chip zone and away from some of the cheapy EV nonsense. AMD number 8, 262,000 contracts today. 107.5 is where it's trading, up a little over $2, about 205 right now out there in AMD land. And then number 7, another A name right behind it that we're used to seeing much higher. Again, this shows you we're kind of in the, dog days of summer. Things are kind of weird. Also a little bit of earnings popping in there as well. We've got the Amazonians all the way down to number 7 today. 268,000 contracts, up about $1.93 right now. They've had a range of 132 and about 3/4 and a high of about 135.20. So a little bit of living in between, and again, good for 268. Number 6, we talked about this for the first time on the Thursday show. Mr. Meatball was alluding to the J&J drama out there. This has to do with this KVUE as well, which is a spinoff of J&J on the consumer health side. Ticker symbol KVUE. 2310 is where it's trading right now, up about $0.25. Let's see, how about a range today? I said about an 80-cent range today. And good for 314,000 contracts. So folks liking themselves a little bit of the old paper in KVUE. We'll see what they're up to out there today, listeners. Let's see. We've got 64,000 of the SEP 30 puts. Okay, so this is one of those funky. Yeah. Okay, yeah, this is obviously one of those. I figured with the corporate action, you never know, and that looks like what's going on. We got synthetics going on for size on the 30 strike. Kind of taking up all the oxygen in the room out here. And then number 5. Surprising name as well. Another A name moving farther down the list than expected. It's Apple, the fruit company, coming in 461 today at the number 5 spot. Up nearly $1 today, trading 175.43 right now. They've had about a decent range, 173 3/4 on the dark side, 175 and about a half on the upside. So decent little range out there today. The market usually likes it when Apple is green, and right now they're happy. Number 5, 461. Number 4, the other half of the chip zone. I should really maybe rename it now. The AI zone, dominated by NVIDIA. Number 4, 584. That's how much paper they're putting up today. They're up $27.5 or 6 1/3%. I mean, this thing is just a roller coaster out there these days. My goodness, trading 408 on Friday, the 11th, so 10 days ago. 460, almost 461 right now. Just what a beast. $28 to the upside now, trading almost 461. Good for 584,000 contracts. Number 3, back to 2021 meme stock land. It's AMC. They're off $1 today, trading 310. So we saw maybe a little bit of optimism on Friday that maybe some of the sell-off would mitigate. Nope. Right back off again today, off $1. Good for 918,000 contracts in AMC out there today. My goodness. And then number two, the other half of all that KVUE drama. This is good old J&J off a little over $5, about 5.15, nearly 3%, trading 167 and about a third. They're saying this offer for KenView is substantially oversubscribed, so all kinds of drama out there. Good for, again, number two. And then number one, you know what? All this other stuff we're talking about, kick it to the curb, because nobody can dethrone the king when it comes to options volume. Tesla, once again, usually right around this level again, 1.5 million, 1.52 million to be precise right now, listeners. Tesla up 12, nearly 13 handles, 228.15 right now is where it's up, nearly 6%. So nice day for them. They got as low as 220.5, so they came for it earlier this morning. They got as high as nearly 230, 229.94. Again, it's a day that ends in Y. A million headlines, a million bits of drama around Tesla. I won't fill the rest of the show with it, but upgrades, downgrades, drama, all over the place. It's another day that ends in Y in Tesla land. Let's go out to the week instead of the day, because earnings are still popping off this week, listeners. You might think dog days of summer, maybe we're going to be quiet. Nope. Today we've got Zoom, and then we've got tomorrow. Zoom is after the bell. Yes, tomorrow we've got Medtronic, Macy's, Lowe's, Dick's Sporting Goods, BJ's, Urban Outfitters, Wednesday, Peloton. Haven't talked about them in a while. Man, what a drama name that one was for a while as well. Star, a darling of the pandemic, then just falling apart. Then maybe Amazon's going to save it, then maybe not. Then they're going to look for a sale, maybe not. All kinds of drama out there. Foot Locker, Williams-Sonoma. We'll see more fun from Peloton and the rest on Wednesday. Oh, a name you may have heard of. NVIDIA popping off on Wednesday as well. So we still got a lot of big names to sink our teeth into, listeners. Thursday, Uncle Mike, listen up. It's Dollar Tree time, so get ready. Burlington also on Thursday. And then Marvell, we've got Ulta Beauty and Intuit and Nordstrom. So a lot popping off this week. We've got updated earnings move results, and earnings season reports for you folks. You folks can check those out over there. You know where to go. The mothership, theoptionsinsider.com is the place to go. Let's just look right now what Zoom was pricing in going into their announcement today. They were at right around 65 and change when we ran this to see where the stock is now. It's actually up more, 67 and a quarter. They were pricing in $6.10. In the past, they moved about $7.60. So a little bit less juice out there in Zoom. You know, maybe the bloom is finally off the rose out there in Zoom. People have been coming for it for a while now. Clearly, the hot days of the pandemic when everyone was using it are behind it. So intriguing stuff there. Dick's Sporting Goods popping off tomorrow. Dick's trading right now 146 and about a half, which is exactly pretty much where it was when we ran this report. They were pricing in $9.50. In the past, they've moved $11.10. So a fair amount less juice in Dick's as well. That's intriguing. It seems like it's starting to be a little bit of a trend out here, and some of the big names are profiling. Pricing in less juice, even though everyone's talking about, oh, it's going to be a banger, going to be apocalyptic, going to be a very dire earnings cycle. Less juice seems to be the order of the day. Let's see if we can continue that. Let's go out to Macy's. They're tomorrow before the bell as well. They're at about $15 when we ran this report. They're pricing in $1.50. In the past, they moved to $1.30. So there we go. Macy's bucking the trend. A little bit more juice out there for good old Macy's. Let's go to some of the names you folks really are interested in. Let's go to NVIDIA. We just talked about where they were trading. Popping hard today, 461. So a lot of this move may be already happening, but they were around 435 when we ran these numbers. They were pricing in $45 exactly in their straddle. Again, they moved $28 already today, so there you go. In the past, they have moved about $28.50. So again, is there such a thing as too much juice in NVIDIA? I'm not sure. This thing moves all over the place on a whim. So $45, is that enough? I guess we'll find out. But it moved $28 just today. So bear that in mind. Let's go out to Snowflake. They were a pandemic darling. They were an IPO, a hot one for a little while. They seem to have cooled a little bit. Then it seemed like maybe recently they kind of got a little bit hot again. Folks starting to get a little bit intrigued by the old Snowflake again. Trading right around $150 when we ran this report. They were pricing in $15.60. In the past, they moved $15.50. So almost exactly in line with what they priced in. By the way, popping hard today, up a little over $4, about $4.20, nearly 3% for Snowflake today. So I'm not sure what's going on out there, but intriguing stuff out there. City, looks like City may be doing a bit of an upgrade on them. Intriguing stuff. Let's go out to Uncle Mike Land. Dollar Tree, 24th before the bell. 144.25 is where they were trading when we ran these numbers. They were pricing in $9.91. In the past, they moved nearly $12.90. So almost exactly $3 less juice on the docket in Dollar Tree. Interesting. Less juice in the dollar store. Maybe Uncle Mike's shopping a little bit less out there. That could potentially be doing it. Into it really quickly. 24th after the bell. Trading $4.95.65 when we ran this report. They were pricing in $23.50. In the past, they've moved $21.05. So extra juice on the docket for Intuit. So Intuit bucking the trend. Let's go out to MRVL as well. 57.33 is where they were when we ran this report. They're on the 24th after the bell, listeners. They're pricing in $5.06. In the past, they've moved $5.07. You don't see them line up that nicely very often, but MRVL deciding to keep things nice and easy for you folks. Right now, the season's still hanging out at about 107%. Our long-term average, 98%. Will they meet somewhere in between? Probably, but you never know. Past not always prologue. We'll see what's going on out there. As we keep on rolling, let's see what's going on in the world of weird paper. It is time for the Odd Block.
It's time to break down the most interesting, unusual, and downright questionable options activity that's been identified by theoptionsinsider.com. It's time for the Odd Block.
Everybody, welcome to the block of oddness. Yes, it is time for the Odd Block, where we get weird, we get wild, we get whimsical. Mr. Meatball, stop me if you've heard this one before, if you dare. Have you ever heard of such a crazy thing as someone daring to sell a put in Bumble, sir? Have you ever heard of such a crazy thing?
Yeah, they love selling puts in that thing, don't they?
They are obsessed with it. It's just like, this is the trade, and you can't blame them. It's worked out almost every time. They're sitting on some I'm sure you've tracked a few of these in your, what do you call it? Weird flow? Sexy flow time? What do you call it?
Yeah, no. I saw this one. They were selling... they were selling the 15 puts, 30 cents. That seems to be the price they like, too.
That seems to be that seems to be their premium level, all the fun stuff that the Meatball likes to cover there in his Sexy Flow Time show that I have just rechristened it. What we're talking about, of course, if you listen to Options Oddities at all, listeners, you know put sellers in Bumble have been the hot trend for a while, going all the way back to the beginning of the year, if not earlier. And we touched on it a little bit on this show as well. Bumble, of course, the platform for the ladies looking for a little bit of love. One of the other hot IPOs back in the 2021 period. Could you pick a better time in recent memory to go public than February of 2021? Talk about euphoria and optimism on another level. They peaked out right around $80, I think, from there, and they've never really looked back. Trading $16.50 right now, so kind of a bit of a challenging time for ladies looking for love out there. $26 is where they were trading exactly a year ago. Looks like they topped out for the year at about $28.50 around that same time. And then they crushed it down in January back to about $19.50. In fact, that's where they kicked off the year, $19.50. Then they had a nice rally to start the year. February 2nd, a lot of names hit their apex on February 2nd this year, listeners. February 2nd, they got back up to right around that 28.5 level again. So they kissed it a couple of times, and then that was it. Then they fell out of bed. They crushed it all the way down to, let's see, how low did they go? 14.75. That was back on May 31st. Then they tried to rally it again recently. Back in July, they got it up to almost $21 again, and then just ran out of steam again and right back down to $16.50 where they are right now. Kind of unched on the day today. I bring that up because put sellers in Bumble, they are the thing, listeners. Right now, today, what do we notice? What's one of the big prints out there on the docket today? Got someone coming in selling 15,000 of the September 15 puts for 28 cents. It's about a 49 vol. The stock was right around $16.50 when they sold these bad boys. And you might say, what am I talking about with this history of Bumble. I should say, by the way, they did more. They came back and did 7,000 more for 26 cents. So they like themselves a little bit of size. Well, this is the trade we've been tracking for a long time in Bumble, and people have done fairly well on this. In fact, right now, I was just talking about it on the Friday show on Options Oddities. Someone has 20,000 of the OCK 12 half puts they just sold in Bumble for 26 cents. That was a week or two ago. And that seemed like that was their new trade. I even commented. I said, oh, I guess they're skipping September. But they got enough premium maybe to make it worth their while. And they do a little bit extra on the October. So I guess they're skipping the September cycle. Nope. They were just waiting until today. They sold them today for 28 cents. But what did they sell a week or two ago? They sold 20,000 of the OCK 12 half puts. So those are still open. The stock at the time was about $17. So it's come in a little bit since then. And then they've kept this trade alive for a long time. We go back to August, listeners. They sold around the same size, around 20,000 of the AUG 15 puts. So similar strikes. They seem to vacillate around the strikes, sometime closer to 15, sometimes down around the 12.5 level. They like to get somewhere in the neighborhood of 20 cents. They got 18 cents back in August. They sold those 14,000 times. The stock was higher, though, 1962. So the 15 handle was pretty far out of the money. These ended up working out. They made about $250,000 on that trade. Go back to Henry also talked about him on this show. Talked about someone putting up another 15,000 lot, this time of the AUG 12 half put. So they'll change strikes around. They got 24 cents for those. So Henry talked about those on the July 6th show here. Those also worked out pretty well. Let's go back to the June 16th show we did on Options Oddities. Someone sold again about 14,000 of the July 15 puts. They sold those for 21 cents. The stock was 17 3/4 at the time. Those worked out well. The stock closed somewhere around $19. So they made, again, a little bit north of $250,000 on this. So this goes back and back. I think we have some from April even as well. So this is a trade that has been going on for quite some time, has been profitable pretty much every time. So if past is prologue, these 15 puts, this is actually probably the closest to the fire they've been in a while. Again, just kind of shows you maybe how some of the vol has collapsed out here in Bumble as a result of all their put selling. They have to go all the way up to the 15 strike. But also, they're getting a fair amount of juice, 28 cents versus 18 cents last month, so a dime more. So maybe they're sitting on a bunch of profits and they're deciding maybe they're getting a little bit faster and looser. They're deciding, hey, let's get a little bit more juice for this. Or maybe they do want to pick up the stock around the 14 3/4 level. Either way, it's intriguing. Mr. Meatball, you said you've been tracking these as well in your super sexy float time show, as I've just rechristened it. What has been catching your eye out there? And I know you like yourself a person with a good track record. This one looking pretty good so far, sir.
Yeah, they just win and win and win and win. And if it ain't broke, don't fix it. That's why they keep going at it. Makes a lot of sense. At some point they'll probably regret a sale, but they'll probably have made so much selling this stuff that they won't really mind that much.
Yeah, they're sitting on some money. If they get put some stock at the levels they're writing these options at, maybe with the exception of this one, this is kind of one of the little bit of the closest to the fire with the stock actually. They've written the 15 strike in the past. The stock's usually been close to $20. Now the stock around $16.50, selling the 15 strike. A little bit higher chance of it getting put to you there, listeners. But it sounds like they'd be okay with that at the end of the day. Since we're paying off some trades, let's go back to some trades we talked about here on the show recently. Let's go back to the June 26th show, listeners. We talked about Baxter International. This is a company out of Deerfield, Illinois that treats kidney disease. Ticker symbol BAX, BAX. Trading $42 even right now, up about $0.25. On the year, different story. A year ago, it was trading about $60. And that was kind of their high for the year. Then they crushed it all the way down to about 37 1/3. That came back in March of this year. And then since then, they've tried to rally it a few times. Most recently, back in July, got it up to about 49, almost $50. But that was a bit of a bridge too far. It since has sold off back to where it is right now. Seems like a comfortable level for it over the last, 3 or so, actually about 5 months since March. This 42 level here, hanging out there yet again. And what did we talk about back on the on the June 26th show? We talked about someone writing a line in the sand in Baxter in the weeklies, which was interesting. It was the August 4th 40 strike puts. They sold those for 44 cents, 4,260 times. And let's see, that was about a 34 vol. Decent level, actually, given how wide the market was. The stock at the time was about $44, $44.07 to be precise. They had earnings coming up within the lifespan of this option. The earnings were on July 27th. So obviously they wanted this trade to extend through the earnings cycle, which is why they went into the weeklies. Kind of odd they didn't just keep it all the way out through the rest of monthly August, but they wanted that August 4th expiration. And, going into the 4th, the stock was hovering right around $44, and it expired at $43.92. These puts were all still open. They were pretty much the only OI on that strike. So they opened them, never closed them. It's like they made a little over $200,000 on this trade, Mr. Meatball, about $203,000. So it seems like that's our theme today. It seems like for the odd blocks, sir, drawing lines in the sand with puts that work out, and you pocket around 200, maybe $250,000, sir. What say you?
This has been a good environment for that. So again, in a market like this with vol higher and and really what felt like almost straight up for the last few months, absolutely makes a ton of sense. Baxter is a pretty consistent stock. It's been kind of in a relatively tight range for, pretty decent amount of time. I mean, doesn't really tend to dip much below 40 for very long. Doesn't really run much past. Doesn't really break 50. So makes some sense for some selling.
All right, you say it's a good environment for writing some puts. How about buying some crazy optimistic calls? Actually, these weren't too crazy back when we talked about them. Let's go all the way back in the Wayback Machine, listeners, to March 6th. Who can even remember so far back? We were all so young and innocent. We hadn't even heard of the term contagion yet. What did we talk about on that show, listeners? Some call love in Emerson Electric, ticker symbol EMR. Let's see. On the year, a year ago, they were trading about 86 and a quarter. Then they rallied them all the way up to about almost 100. They kissed 100, 99.65. That was on January 11th. So they actually started the year off well. Then they kind of fell out of bed and dropped all the way down. Well, they got to that low. That was the 72.40. That was in May. But let's not get there yet, because what we profiled on the show was a 5,000 lot of someone coming in and swinging for some upside fences back in March. They bought the April 92 halves. They paid $1.33 for these bad boys, listeners, so fairly rich. It was a 22 vol. The stock was at 87.84, listeners. And there were earnings, but not in the cycle of these options. The earnings are coming up on May 10th, so this was not an earnings trade. And, the stock closed, actually, $85.60 on April expiration. But you know what? It didn't matter. This stock, if you look at this chart, you can kind of see that they had some pretty bad timing. 87.84 was what they paid for these, and that was kind of a bit of a near-term high for this name. It kind of fell out of bed shortly thereafter. And these people, maybe to their credit, because the stock ended up never really getting there, they bailed on these very quickly. They decided, you know what, it's not happening. And we've always said, if you're going to buy out of the money premium, you need to have your move happen very quickly in order for these things to pay off. They decided very quickly, this is not happening, because these options got annihilated. They took these off 3 days later on March 9th. They bought them for $1.33, listeners, on March 6th. They dumped them all on March 9th for 45 cents. Just 3 days, these things got annihilated by nearly $1. I mean, the stock dropped. It was 87.84 when they bought them. It was 84 and a quarter. So they realized really quickly, the jig is up. We got run over on these bad boys. So to their credit, they took what little they had left and used that, I suppose, to live to fight another day. Either way, they were out not quite $500,000, but pretty close, 440,000 contracts. So Mr. Meatball, not quite the printing $250,000 we've been talking about here in these line in the sand puts, but someone reaching for the stars and unfortunately, sir, falling aggressively and very quickly short, sir.
Yeah, these kind of home run trades, that's typically what ends up happening, is that you take a shot and it doesn't work. But when it does work, it's not so terrible. But that's not really the way I like to trade. And maybe it was a hedge against a short position. You never know, right? So We've definitely seen that happen where you see a big print of out of the money calls or puts, and then the stock moves the other way. Well, that's usually a sign that someone was actually going the opposite direction, was using the options as a hedge.
That could very well be. If they sold some stock at 87, 84, they'll be happy to buy it back at 84 and a quarter. Still, they bought a pretty expensive option to hedge themselves, $1.33. They give up $1 on that option. So they're still wearing it on the option side, but they could have done well on the stock. You never know, listeners. But you know what we do know? It's Monday. That means it's time for the strategy block.
It's time to dispense options, wit, wisdom, and education. It's time for the Strategy Block.
All right, listeners, it's that time. Uncle Mike, you got 10 minutes left in the show. I expect you to fill it with a 10-minute discourse on the rippling abs of one ravishing Rick Rude. Have at it, sir.
Well, I mean, he's something else in that he would wear sometimes he would print the wife of his opponent on his wrestling tights. He was he was simply ravishing, you might say, that's for sure. But what's not ravishing is when I have clients call me at times if they're trading their own accounts, and I actually don't really have a lot of those anymore. Most of my clients, some of them still trade their own accounts for the most part, but the money that we have through us is all managed money now. But I want to go through an example of when is an adjustment a loss? And a lot of times it really is. So I want to give you an example. Let's say that I have a client wanting to get into a stock at $175 per share. Stock's like maybe 185, 190, something like this. And he sells a put on it. Okay, that's totally fine. Great strategy. If the market goes down, he'll get put the stock. Or if the stock goes down, he'll get put the stock and get paid to buy it at the price he wanted to buy it at anyway. And we'll use 175 as our example. Now, with that, stock goes down a little bit more than he expects. Well, now the stock's at 168 per share. And instead of letting it get put to him, you know what? I want to get a credit because credits are good. Debits are bad. So sometimes I've had clients roll the 175 put for the front month to the next month. They're still in the same short put, and they got paid to do it because there's more time. And you just keep getting paid to just push out that credit. And eventually the stock continues to go lower and lower and lower and lower and lower and lower and lower. Till eventually, because the client wants to continue to make adjustments and never take a loss. I never want to take a loss in my trades. If you have that philosophy, then what that same person would be doing is they're rolling out to the 175 puts, and the bid-ask spreads become so ridiculously wide that at times they actually do it for a slight debit. And so here's where I'm going with this. Be real with yourself. If the trade goes against you, there's nothing that you or any of us on this show, for that matter, can do to adjust to make a losing trade a winning trade without more market movement in your favor. Once again, no amount of adjusting will automatically take a losing trade and make it a winning trade unless you have market movement in your favor. So, for example, let's say that we use this same stock and it's at $176 per share and it's a little bit too close for comfort. Well, you roll down from the 175 puts to the 170 puts. Oh, thank goodness, I'm good. Now I have $5 more of breathing room, and it's just better right now. Well, it might be better going forward, but it's not necessarily better today. You didn't make yourself automatically better today. All you did is you shifted risk in a way that you feel is more favorable to you going forward. So, for example, is your account value going to be any greater because of the fact that you rolled the 175 put to a 170 maybe a couple months out? No, it's your account value is going to be identical. likely less because of the commission that you're paying. Not of any significance, but it's going to be less. And when you do that, you're not automatically making it better. You're simply shifting risk for future market movements. So where I'm going with this is that I've had people call me at times, and I'm sure Mark and Mark have gotten phone calls like this before too. Oh, what can you do to save me on this trade? And we can do things. We can make adjustments. Don't get me wrong, and I'm not against adjustments, but with the expectation that you're automatically in a better spot because of the adjustment that you've made, that's simply false. You may or may not be in a better spot because of the fact that the market might move in a different way. So let's say, for example, that I roll the 175 put down to the 170 put. Am I in a better spot? No, not automatically, because what if that stock automatically goes higher right away? Well, then I would have been better off staying in the 175 put. So have an understanding and be real with yourself. You're not necessarily in a better spot just because you make an adjustment.
All right, everybody. Now it's time for us to keep on rolling and go around the block.
It's time to tell you what we'll be watching on our trading screens until the next episode. It's time for Around the Block.
All right, everybody. Welcome to Around the Block, where we tell you what we're keeping an eye on for the rest of the week until the Thursday episode. We also try to catch up on our question of the week. This one just went live a few minutes ago out there, listeners. And again, we kind of like to revisit some of our questions from earlier in the year, see how your sentiment evolves. We asked you this one back in May, back when we first started seeing maybe some kind of warning signs for this market. We said, hey, you know, in these troubled times, where are you allocating the majority of your portfolio? Last time, most of you, the largest percentage of you chose cash. We gave you cash, fixed income. Oh, no, we gave you cash, I think crypto, equities, and then commodities/fixed income. We switched that around this time. We wanted to revisit this, but we pulled crypto out because a lot of you asked, what about fixed income should be its own thing? So you know what? We did that for you. So we changed it up this week. So we said, hey, where are you allocating the majority of your portfolio right now? And once again, these kind of turbulent, troubled times, again, cash, fixed income, equities, or commodities/crypto. Mr. Meatball, we will start with you, sir. What is your vote, and what do you think our audience is voting for? B, and then C, what are you keeping an eye on for the rest of the week?
Hopefully the audience is voting for fixed income because that seems like the best trade, right? I mean, bonds have been hurt, but now you're getting massive yields out of short-term debt like CDs and money markets, and even long-term rates are starting to look pretty favorable. So I would go with the fixed income side, but our audience, who knows? Let's say oil.
Could be indeed. And what are you keeping an eye on for the rest of the week, sir?
We've got it's a big week. The bond market, obviously, should be top of mind for everybody. It's been such a driver of markets overall. S&Ps and bonds have been correlating, which is usually not a good thing. And then we have NVIDIA earnings on Wednesday. I talked about the fact that is really juicy. We've got this BRICS meeting going on right now. We have Jackson Hole Thursday and Friday with Powell speaking, and durable goods going as well.
A lot to keep an eye on there. Mr. Uncle Mike, same question for you, sir. What is your vote? B, what do you think our audience is voting for? And C, what are you keeping an eye on for the rest of the week?
Fixed income and fixed income. I think our audience is saying fixed income. I have faith in their wanting to put their cash in the right spot for that regard. And I think fixed income's if you're including money markets and CDs, I think that's a good spot to be at this point. With that, in terms of what I'm keeping an eye on this week, in addition to what the Meatball had said, we're below the 4,400 mark on the SPX, and I don't know if I'll necessarily be watching it later this week, but I'm definitely watching it today to see if we can make a run at it. We got as high as 43.95 on the day today, so I'm curious to see if we can get above it. And the VIX just quietly sneaking back again. Not today, but it'll be interesting to see how that reacts to all of the things with which are happening this week.
All right, everybody. That music means we've come to the end of our sojourn here. Let's check in, see how you folks are voting in the early blush. And you know what? Cash just took the lead. 38.5% of you choosing cash right now, followed by number 2, our new addition, the choice here for both the greasiest of meatballs and the unclest of Mike's, fixed income, coming in at 30.8%. And then equities right now, 23.1%. And then bringing up the rear, commodities/crypto. So you lump crude oil and everything else in there with crypto. Still not getting any love, only 7.7%. Again, this just went live a little while ago. So you'll have it over there at options to kick around all week. We'll come back later in the week to discuss the results there and a whole bunch more. But before we do that, let's go back around the horn. Let's start with the greasiest of meatballs. Mr. Meatball, sir, if folks want to check out your super sexy flow time and everything else, where should they go? What should they do?
Yeah, just head on down to optionpit.com and you will be a happy camper. Writing and recording video every day to help you better your trading. That's optionpit.com, and my piece is called The Trader's Edge.
Or super sexy float time. You like how I give you all this free just branding?
I do
easy.
like it. That's my show. But yeah,
super sexy
I'm a
float
fan.
time. What else do we have? We have the Bad Money After Bad newsletter. A lot of fun things.
I gotta start that one. Bad Money After Bad.
There you go. Free gold. Find it for yourselves over there, listeners. Optionpit.com. Mr. Uncle Mike, I don't have any free branding for you. Of course, I did christen you Uncle Mike, which apparently you see that there's an Uncle Mike's place here in Chicago, so I'll have to go check it out. I think it's a Filipino restaurant. So who knew, sir? You were such a Filipino restaurant maven. If folks want to check out your restaurant and anything else, where should they go? What should they do, sir?
Well, if you want to throw good money after good, check out my website, stcharleswealth.com. If you're looking for a financial advisor in any way, shape, or form, would love to have a conversation with any of our listeners, whether you have $1 or whether you have $10 trillion. I love talking to our audience. Give me a call, find me on my website, or give me a follow on Twitter at Mike TOSAW, TOSAW.
Here you go, Mike TOSAW, TOSAW on Twitter. You can also go to Uncle Mike's Place. That's on Grand Avenue here in Chicago. Apparently, that's a Filipino-American place that serves some inspired breakfasts and is known for their 12-ounce skirt steak for only $16.95. Comes with eggs, hash brown, and toast. What more could you need, listeners? Uncle Mike's Place. I'll give him free plugs to restaurant here for days. Just give him plugs to restaurants here for days on the network. One day I will cash a check from a restaurant for all the free plugs I've given them over the years. Unfortunately, that music means we're done here for the OB. Also done here for the day on the network. Tomorrow, the day of days on the network, so no shows tomorrow. Back again on Wednesday, though, with a little bit of the old options boot camp, what the cool kids call OBC. Then back again on Thursday, another episode of the Option Block. Stay safe out there, everybody.
You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com.